A tale of raw talent, personal conviction, and a deliberate retreat from the spotlight that defined his career with Guns N' Roses and beyond. As the rhythm guitarist and a founding member of the iconic band, Izzy was the understated pulse behind their meteoric rise in the late 1980s, contributing to the gritty, soulful sound that made Appetite for Destruction, 1987, a landmark album. His songwriting prowess shone in tracks like Sweet Child O' Mine, Paradise City, and Patience, where his knack for melodic riffs and streetwise lyrics grounded the band's raw energy. Yet beneath the surface of global fame, Izzy's story is one of heartbreak, marked by his struggle with addiction, his disillusionment with the rock star lifestyle, and his choice to prioritize sobriety and simplicity over the chaos of stardom, a decision that both saved him and sidelined him from the legacy he helped create. Growing up in Lafayette, Izzy was drawn to music early. Influenced by his grandmother's drumming and the rebellious pulse of punk and rock, he met Axl Rose in high school, forming a bond over shared musical dreams that led them to Los Angeles in the early 1980s. There they pieced together Guns N' Roses with Slash, Duff McKagan, and Steven Adler, a lineup that would become legendary. Izzy's role was pivotal. His rhythm guitar provided the backbone for Slash's soaring solos, and his songwriting, often in collaboration with Axl, gave the band its emotional depth. Tracks like Don't Cry and You Could Be Mine bore his signature blend of vulnerability and edge, reflecting his ability to channel personal experiences into universal anthems. By 1987, Appetite for Destruction had catapulted the band to fame, selling over 18 million copies worldwide and establishing them as the voice of a generation. But for Izzy, the trappings of success, endless tours, media scrutiny, and internal band tensions began to take a toll. The seeds of Izzy's tragedy were sown in his battle with addiction, a struggle that mirrored the band's broader descent into excess. By the late 1980s, Guns N' Roses was as notorious for its hedonism as for its music, with heroin and alcohol fueling their volatile dynamic. Izzy's wake-up call came in 1989 when he was arrested for public urination on a commercial flight. An incident that humiliated him and forced him to confront his demons. He entered rehab, achieving sobriety just as the band began recording the ambitious Use Your Illusion albums. However, sobriety brought clarity, and Izzy grew increasingly alienated from the band's dysfunction. Axl Rose's erratic behavior, late starts, on-stage rants, and a growing need for control clashed with Izzy's laid-back, no-nonsense approach. Tensions escalated during the Use Your Illusion tour in 1991, where Axl's demands and the band's grueling schedule pushed Izzy to his breaking point. Compounding this was an unequal royalty split, which left Izzy feeling undervalued despite his contributions. In November 1991, at the peak of the band's fame, he walked away. A decision that shocked fans and left a void in Guns N' Roses that many argue was never filled. Izzy's departure was not just a career pivot but a profound act of self-preservation, one that set the stage for both his independence and his obscurity. In 1992, he formed Izzy Stradlin and the Juju Hounds, releasing a self-titled album that showcased his rootsy, Rolling Stones-inspired sound. Critics praised its authenticity, with tracks like Somebody Knocking and Shuffle It all revealing a matured artist unburdened by the pressures of arena rock. The album's modest success proved Izzy could thrive outside Guns N' Roses, but his aversion to the music industry's machinations, interviews, promotions, and relentless touring kept him from capitalizing on it. Instead, he retreated to Ojai, California, and later returned to his hometown of Lafayette, embracing a reclusive life that baffled those who expected him to chase fame. Over the next 2 decades, he released a string of low-key solo albums, often independently through platforms like iTunes, with titles like 117 Degrees, Ride On, 1999, and Wave of Heat, 2010. These works, while beloved by a niche fan base, never matched the commercial heights of his Guns N' Roses days, reflecting his deliberate choice to prioritize creative control over mainstream success. The tragedy of Izzy Stradlin lies not only in his exit from Guns N' Roses but in the what-ifs that haunt his legacy. He made sporadic returns to the band, filling in for Gilby Clarke in 1993 and jamming with Axl and Duff in 2006, but he remained steadfastly independent. When the partial Guns N' Roses reunion tour was announced in 2016 featuring Axl, Slash, and Duff, fans hoped Izzy would join, even part-time. His absence was a gut punch, reportedly due to disputes over financial terms and his reluctance to commit to a high-profile tour. In a rare 2016 interview, Izzy expressed no bitterness, simply stating he didn't feel the terms were fair. This decision underscored his unwavering commitment to his principles, even at the cost of rejoining one of rock's biggest acts. Instead, he continued releasing music on his terms with singles like FP Money in 2016 and lived quietly in Indiana, occasionally spotted riding his motorcycle or attending local events. Formed Izzy Stradlin and the Juju Hounds, a small free-spirited band untouched by major label control. Their self-titled debut album was released later that year, steeped in roots rock, blues, and reggae, a complete departure from the sound of Guns N' Roses. The snarling riffs were gone, replaced by raw vintage melodies, like Neil Young meeting Keith Richards in a bar somewhere in Georgia. The surprising part? Critics loved it. The album received positive reviews from Rolling Stone, Kerrang, and various independent rock magazines, which praised it as mature, honest, and unafraid to be remembered without flash. The track Shuffle It All became a modest hit, receiving radio airplay in Europe and Japan, where Izzy still has a loyal fan base to this day. But just as people thought Izzy would launch a world tour, he chose to disappear again. From the mid-1990s to 2010, Izzy Stradlin released more than 10 solo albums, most of them self-recorded with limited releases or digital-only distribution via iTunes. Albums like 117 Degrees, 1998, Ride On, 1999, River, 2001, On Down the Road, 2002, Fire, the acoustic album, 2007, and Wave of Heat, 2010, all shared one thing: they weren't trying to make noise. They simply existed. No music videos, no marketing campaigns, no long tours, sometimes just a song, a riff, a whispered lyric, like an entry in a journal. For Izzy, music wasn't a product. It was a way of life. He didn't write to be celebrated. He wrote because if he didn't, he would go insane. Many of his solo songs still carried the old Guns N' Roses spirit, not through their sound, but through their attitude, gritty, urgent, low-key, and unpolished. Izzy kept telling stories of loneliness, of weariness with the American rock and roll lifestyle, and of his longing for personal freedom in an increasingly overloaded world. Though reclusive, Izzy never completely severed ties with his past. In 1993, he briefly rejoined Guns N' Roses for a few shows, filling in for Gilby Clarke. In 2006 and 2012, he surprised fans by appearing on stage with Slash and Axl, moments that sent shock waves through the crowd, hinting at a possible full reunion. But once again, he quietly vanished afterward. Personal life and the rumors: Izzy Stradlin was once the musical core of the biggest band in the world. But after stepping away from Guns N' Roses in late 1991, he slowly vanished from everything associated with fame. No parties, no red carpets, no talk shows, no follow-up scandals. And since then, what people know about him has been reduced to a string of rumors. Despite living privately, Izzy never completely cut ties with his past. In 1993, when Gilby Clarke was injured in a motorcycle accident and couldn't perform, Izzy unexpectedly returned to the stage with Guns N' Roses for several shows in Europe. No announcement beforehand, no press afterward, he simply walked on stage, plugged in his guitar, played like he'd never left, and then quietly disappeared again. Izzy's story is heartbreaking because it embodies a rare integrity in an industry that often demands compromise. He walked away from fame, fortune, and the chance to cement his place in rock history, choosing instead a life of authenticity and sobriety. Fans and critics alike mourned the lost potential, imagined the albums, the tours, the legacy if he had stayed with Guns N' Roses or pursued a more visible solo career. Yet there's a quiet dignity in his choices. Unlike many rock stars consumed by addiction or ego, Izzy survived, carving out a life that aligned with his values. His tragedy is not one of failure but of sacrifice. He traded the spotlight for peace, leaving behind a body of work that, while underappreciated, remains a testament to his genius. For every fan who still blasts Sweet Child of Mine, there's a pang of sorrow for the man who helped create it, only to slip away into the shadows, a rock legend who chose to be just Izzy.